morning, guys, and welcome to our Monday movie memo here at Cinema Blend. And for those of us in the United States and not lucky enough to live overseas, this is Captain America the Winter Soldier week, which means we are going to be inundating the site with content geared towards the second standalone Captain America film and talk about the ways that it's going to lead into the bigger issues of Marvel's Phase 3. From everything we're hearing, the new Captain America movie will be a direct lead into the Avengers Age of Ultron, and it might be one of the last times that we see Captain America on screen outside of Avengers films. We do have a Cap 3 to look forward to, and the reason why I emphasize that here in the United States, it's Captain America the Winter Soldier week is because the film has already opened overseas. The UK got to see it first. Marvel, why is that? I think that Marvel's a U.S. property. Come on. I mean, the UK folks, as much as we love them, and believe me, we love you guys. You guys get things like Bond before we do, and you're starting to get a lot of our tentpole films earlier than we do. Star Trek Into Darkness opened there first, and there are a few other examples that are escaping me right now. But anyway, if you live overseas, you're able to see Captain America right now. You could pause this if you want to. Head to the theaters, go see Captain America the Winter Soldier. But the rest of us are looking forward to Friday, April 4th, or actually Thursday, April 3rd, when it's going to start screening in the evenings. And a few of us on staff have seen it. I'm not one of them. So I'm going to talk speculatively. There are going to be spoilers in this conversation, but I'm going to talk about the future of Captain America beyond the Winter Soldier and the storylines that I think Marvel might want to pursue if they're going to continue to use him as a focal point. If you haven't yet, go back to the site right now and watch Eric's interview with Marvel President Kevin Feige, because he talks a lot about how Winter Soldier impacts the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and lays out a lot of pieces that I think are going to be very important in the stories that they tell. And we're starting to see, and again, I haven't seen it, but I'm just basing it on everything that I've been able to read so far and what I've been able to piece together. So again, spoilers. We're going to talk in depth about what we kind of know about Winter Soldier and where we think the character is going to go. So if you haven't seen Winter Soldier yet, we don't want to get into this conversation, then stop it right now. But if you, I don't know why you would click a video that talks about the future of Captain America if you didn't want to hear about the future of Captain America. So from everything that we've been seeing with Cap and the way that Chris Evans is playing him, Steve Rogers is playing the character of Steve Rogers, he's still very much this idealism, dyed-in-the-wool patriot who wants to do the right thing. And what we're seeing in a lot of the teasers for the Winter Soldier is that S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't always want to do the right thing. Or they want to do the right thing for the benefit of the country, but Cap sort of thinks that the benefit of the country should be better served in maybe a more noble way. And I think that speaks to a lot to where we stand in the current political regime and the fact that nobody really trusts politicians anymore. Like, they say they're doing the right thing, but they're not going about getting to the right thing in the right way. Does that make any sense? I threw right in there a lot. And that's a theme that was explored in Captain America comics for years. I mean, Steve Rogers was always sort of at odds with the government, and when the best writers got hold of the character, they would like to pit him against controversial forces in the U.S. government, covert operations in the U.S. government, and it always made Cap sort of question where he stood. I mean, he's the ultimate patriot, and he's supposed to be fighting for our country. So when is he ever more dramatically at odds than when he's fighting against our government and what's supposed to represent the best of our country, and he's the lone wolf individual standing in there? There are three storylines that I want to talk about specifically that I think that they could pull from the books. And I want to bring you back to Comic-Con 2 years ago, when they announced that Cap and Thor were going to be the two getting standalone movies next. And all Marvel had to do was put up the title, Captain America the Winter Soldier. And the place went nuts, because they just knew that it was a great story, and they wanted to see how it was going to translate to the big screen. And I mean, there are huge elements pulled from Ed Brubaker's graphic novel or from his comic arc, but they had to make some changes. They had to tweak it to sort of fit into contemporary times and to fit it into what Marvel's trying to do in the cinematic universe. And I'm looking for a title in a future Cap story, whether it be for Cap 3 or whether it be for down the line. Because one of the things that Feige says in that interview with Eric, or that he emphasizes, is how Cap really is the focal point of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I think most things are going to spin from him. And when we get to one of the stories that I want to talk about, you'll see that it's either him or Iron Man that I think need to be the center of attention for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I would start with Operation Rebirth, which was a great Captain America story that involves certain elements that we're seeing on screen in The Winter Soldier. Primarily Sharon Carter, who now is a character that they've introduced, and you've seen her in some trailers. She hasn't had really like a big speaking part just yet, but they've introduced her, so Marvel has her there, and it gets into the Red Skull, and it gets into the Avengers, and Operation Rebirth, which gave Cap new purpose, also pulled in Doctor Doom. Now, I'm not saying that Marvel can settle its legal disputes with Fox and get the Doctor Doom character back, but Fantastic Four doesn't know how to use him, so why not turn him over to Marvel and see if they can bring Doctor Doom back to some level of prominence, because he's one of the best villains that Marvel's ever had, and he's been awful on screen. So if they explored Operation Rebirth, and if you haven't read it yet, go find it, I think that could set up some really interesting platforms for the character to go to next. So too could a 2007 comic storyline, 2007-2008, called The Death of Captain America. One of the most popular Captain America storylines, and obviously the title would be a massive spoiler, but one of the reasons that's Ed Brubaker also, and he's the one who wrote the Winter Soldier storyline or guided that story, and so if they wanted to stay in Brubaker's world, they could explore this Death of Captain America. If you haven't read Gabe's column on the site, Gabe talks about the fact that, because of the age of the actors playing these heroes, and the complicated contracts that they've entered, killing these guys off is going to have to happen sooner rather than later. And so if they took the time and told the Death of Captain America storyline, it could be a graceful exit for Evans, who has talked about the fact that, he wants to retire from acting and he wants to get into directing, and he'll only act in what could be future Marvel projects because he's under contract to do so. But his contract runs out soon, and if he doesn't re-up, what they did was they gave Sebastian Stan this 9-picture deal. We have a story about that on the site too. And so if Sebastian Stan, who plays Bucky Barnes, who plays the Winter Soldier, who in this Death of Captain America storyline, Bucky Barnes assumes the mantle of Captain America, you could potentially do that for Captain America 3 and figure out a way to keep the character around and to extend the life of the hero without having to keep Evans in the fold. So it's a major possibility. Like when you start to read the tea leaves of what's happening in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it makes me think that storyline of the Death of Captain America could be one that they're going to that they've circled already, and they're going to try and find some way to pull that in, at least some of the main elements of that story. But man, I hate to see Evans go. He's so good in that role. I mean, he was great as Human Torch, and he's great as Cap. But I haven't seen Winter Soldier yet, and I'm dying to see how Sebastian Stan handles that character, because he's going to start in one end of the spectrum and then end at the other, I would assume. Again, haven't seen it. I gave you spoiler warnings a long time ago. My number one Cap story that I would love to see Marvel pursue is going to have to take some wrangling, because it's not impossible, but it's up there. I would love to see Marvel do the Secret Wars someday, but there's too many characters that would need to be pulled in. I think, though, that they could try to do the Civil War storyline. I think that they could set up the Superhuman Registration Act. I think they could set up a conflict between Captain America and Iron Man. And I think that this underlying element in the Civil War storyline, and I'm sure most of you have read it by now, Cap obviously becomes the anti-Registration Act hero, leader, and it puts him again at odds with the U.S. government, who wants superheroes to disclose their secret identities and register themselves for the benefit of society. And it's a questionable tactic that Cap tends to sort of step back from and take a look at and say, nah, this does more harm than good. I don't really approve of this. And it furthers the notion that they're trying to develop in these Marvel movies that Cap stands for a stronger ideal, but doesn't necessarily approve of the methods to get to that ideal. Maybe they're throwing the seeds into the field to try and do Civil War down the line. It would be very complicated. It would be bigger than trying to do an Avengers movie, for sure, like a standalone Avengers movie. Though the Avengers movies in and of themselves are growing with each new character, with each new installment. I mean, we have so many new characters coming in with Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, and we still got to build to Thanos, and we may get to a point where the Avengers crisscross with the Guardians of the Galaxy. And I mean, Marvel's not afraid to build, but are they building towards a Civil War plotline? I don't know, but I think it would be a really exciting way for them to go. And imagine if you're lucky enough to be sitting in Hall H at Comic-Con and they put the title card up on that screen, and it says Marvel's Civil War. I mean, I've seen Hall H explode before, but I'm not quite sure that the foundation of that building could stand the geek enthusiasm that would explode when they announced Civil War. But that'd be years down the line. For now, we're buckling in for Captain America the Winter Soldier, which opens on Friday. Or Thursday. Go Thursday night. We have a review on the site already. We have interviews with all of the major players coming this week. Kevin Feige is already on the site. We're going to have everyone from the cast. Eric did a bang-up job on the junket. We're going to have a ton of columns exploring the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, exploring Captain America and his place in it. And those are the three storylines that I want to see Cap explore somewhere down the line. Tell me what I missed. Give me your best Captain America story that you think would translate to the big screen. Keep reading our Captain America the Winter Soldier content on Cinema Blend. And thank you so much, as always, for tuning in to our Monday Movie Memo.